program, Inside Kazakh Hollywood, a TV tower in the clouds, and a trip to the chocolate factory. Salam, privyet, and hello. I'm Dennis Keene, and today on Discovering Kazakhstan, we are in Almaty, the country's largest city and its former capital, exploring some of its most mysterious sites. These are the buildings that every local Almatian knows, but that few have been inside. From the city's most famous candy factory to the so-called dream factory of Kazakhstan's film studios, these are the places that drive Almaty's culture and economy, but that tourists like me don't usually get to have a peek inside. Come along as we get a special pass that will take us inside these special places. Dominating Almaty's Republic Square is a building that many find to be somewhat severe, built in a style that's known in the West as brutalism. Known as the House of Government, it was built in 1983 to house the central state organs of Communist Kazakhstan. Since 1999, this massive building on a hill has housed the city government, known as the Akimat. The local administration has recently emphasized the need for open governance and transparency, and in that spirit, they have invited us for a visit inside. But first, let's have a look around the massive grounds that surround this landmark Almaty building. A lot of people, especially foreign tourists, assume from afar that the building is faced in concrete, that dour gray material that Soviet architecture is best known for in the West. But when you get up close, you realize that Almaty architects, at least, were actually very creative in the kind of materials that they use for the facades. Here, for example, we can see some beautiful gray marble and a special kind of stone that comes from Western Kazakhstan that's known as rakuchishnik. Looking up close, you can see that it's full of these ancient fossils, seashells that are left over from a time 3 million years ago. Every Almatian knows the shape of the Akimat as seen from Republic Square, but the building only reveals its true character when seen from behind. From here, we can see that the building is not as monolithic as it seems from the front, but actually consists of 3 wings that are connected by passageways. In the middle, a large hall where the government can hold conferences and meetings to do official business. As a citizen, I've always wondered what goes on inside these halls, and now we finally have a chance to go inside and check it out. When you come in the main entrance of the building, you are greeted by a grand staircase that leads to the famous Oval Hall. The aesthetics in here are minimalist and sophisticated, and the original design details have been preserved in fine condition. As the main lobby to the city government, this space is full of visitors and public servants day in and day out. And with its clean design and constant hustle and bustle, it has the feeling of a fresh but dynamic workplace. For a building that is so stubbornly rectangular with its blocky facade of straight lines, it's surprising that the most impressive space in the entire building is without right angles. It's called the Oval Hall, and it's a theatrical space with a soaring domed ceiling that is a suitable center for important government business. When Almaty was the capital of newly independent Kazakhstan, some of the young country's most important affairs were decided in this room. And now the country's biggest city has its problems hashed out in this amazing space. Walking outside the Akima and through its hallways, you get used to the building's cool, modernist style. And then you enter one of the meeting rooms and your eyes feast on the level of detail. Just here, around the ceiling, I can count 7 layers of plaster molding. The ceiling itself has this huge grid of symmetrical patterns, and the table and the chairs that are used here for the city's businesses are classic, dark wood and beautiful leather. Right up the hill from the Akimat is another building that is instantly recognizable to locals, though they might not have any idea what's going on inside. Many people would be surprised to learn that some of their favorite TV programs are shot inside this building, as it's called the Telecenter. Built in 1983, the Telecenter has a daring, experimental appearance that is characteristic of this period of Soviet architecture. Never before in Kazakhstan had a building ever had such a modern facade of glazed glass, which the architects hoped would reflect the world around it, just as television reflects our reality. Most memorable of all are the building's so-called stalactites, geometric tendrils of limestone that recall a feature of Central Asian Islamic architecture called muqarnas. It's this combination of elements, both modern and ancient, that make this building so unusual. When the Telecenter was first opened, there was a long reflecting pool out front that was meant to mirror the glass above. What's neat is that the water from the pool was actually used for the building's air conditioning system as a way to keep the equipment inside cool. To get into the building, visitors would have to cross over this bridge, the water in the pool below cleansing them of any outside worries. Later, the pool was made into a fountain, which is now under renovation, but still, coming across the bridge to get into the building continues to make an impression. The theme of transformation and transcendence continues as we come inside. We've crossed over a bridge and climbed up granite stairs, and now we've come to a lobby space with a kind of dual personality to explore. On the first floor, they've used black marble to represent the dark of the night. And here on the second floor, white marble to represent the light of the day. Having seen this iconic Almaty building so many times from the outside, it's a thrill to finally be here behind those giant limestone stalactites. And from up here on the top floor, looking out the window, we have the most beautiful view of Желтоқсан Street, which is by design. When the telecenter was built, the Soviet TV industry was transitioning from shooting mostly newsreels to offering a wider array of both live and pre-recorded programming. So major studios like this were built that allowed them to shoot just about any kind of show thinkable. Nowadays, the state TV channel shoots talk shows here that are seen by millions. At 372 meters, the Almaty television and radio tower, perched atop Koktubey, one of the city's highest hills, is by far the tallest structure in all of Kazakhstan. The tower's height is especially impressive when you consider that Almaty is located within a seismically active zone. The city has twice been devastated by earthquakes. And though the tower has the form of a toothpick and is built into loose hillside soil, engineers brilliantly designed it to withstand an earthquake at 10.0 on the Richter scale. To give such a tall structure a solid base of support, engineers built a huge concrete foundation into the side of the hill. Because this communication center was considered to be a strategic site, they built a bomb shelter down here in the bunker so that TV and radio workers could scurry to safety in the case of a nuclear war. It may seem like a dream job to watch TV all day, but it's hard enough to keep track sometimes of what's happening on one channel, let alone track 26 Kazakhstani stations at a time. But no, the real challenge here is monitoring the quality of the signal so that 18 million Kazakhstanis can get their entertainment without a hitch. With a unified computer program, technicians here monitor almost 500 locations throughout the country where digital signals are broadcast to make sure that there are no serious distortions or interferences in the signal. By the end of the year, there will be more than 800 such locations, and with so much work, couch potatoes need not apply. In the original plans, it said that there was to be a revolving restaurant, so you could sit up here, drink a cup of hot Kazakh tea, and enjoy a 360-degree panoramic view of the city and the mountains. But alas, because of the technical challenges of getting thousands of tourists up and down and safely, for now, this observation deck is just for the lucky few. Hello out there. I wanted to give a shout out to my followers in Almaty because today we have a very exciting shoot. We are shooting at Koktubey. From one side we can look over the city of Almaty, and here we have the foothills of the Alatau going all the way up to the snow-capped peaks. Since not many people get to come up here, I thought I would bring you along for the journey and show you what the view is like from the top of this iconic TV tower. Even those who have been so lucky to ascend to the observation deck may not know that the tower hides a whole other secret treasure. On the second floor, there is a series of beautiful stained glass windows that must be the largest in Kazakhstan, if not in Central Asia. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, when the tower was built, something called monumental art was very much in vogue. where Soviet buildings were decorated with mosaics and murals and stained glass. Monumental artists developed a special stained glass technique that is quite different from the fragile stained glass that you might see in churches in Europe. Here we have blocks with a thickness and texture that makes it even more magical. Several days a week, the streets around Almaty's legendary Green Bazaar are filled with the luscious fragrance of melting chocolate. I live nearby, and there are days where I'll open the windows and my entire apartment fills with this sweet, sweet smell. The source of this amazing, amazing scent, any local can tell you, is the historic confectionery factory that has stood nearby since 1942. Its products, ranging from cookies to chocolates to marmalades, are beloved by Kazakhstanis everywhere, but getting inside the factory itself has never been easy. We, however, have the golden ticket and are going to be taking you along on the journey. As the factory was built during the Soviet period, it has a certain vintage feel, right down to its instantly recognizable facade, where you can see an antique sign hanging that's made out of this embossed metal, or what's called chikanka. There, to this day, it has the original name, the Almaty Confectionery Factory. In the middle, you can see the original logo of the factory, a big K for konditorskaya, or confectionery. Just seeing this sign can make generations of Almatians smile and have their mouths start to water. Hello. Thank you. Now that I've come into the inner sanctum of the factory, I can no longer be walking around in my street clothes with their dust and dirt, because the hygienic standards here are of the highest order. So I get to put on this kind of white lab coat. Inside my pocket here, I have a little hairnet so that none of my hair gets any of those chocolate products. And then I'm going to put on these little plastic booties and we'll be ready to go. Hello friends, I'm bringing you today inside a very special place, a place in Almaty that not many people get to visit. We are inside the famous candy factory. Who hasn't ever dreamed of being beside a conveyor belt like this as those hot, fresh candies are coming out? And this is my favorite part here, this station, because check it out. We're right here at the chocolate curtain. The candies are going in there, and they're getting covered in luscious, melted chocolate. Then it's onward through these little refrigerators so that they can cool, they're gonna get wrapped, and they're sent right to the company store, super fresh. I've always wanted to pick a candy off the conveyor belt, and don't worry, I have gotten express permission to be able to do this. It has now cooled into its final form, and it is off to the final section. It's being zoomed down the conveyor belt here to the wrapping section. Unlike in America, where you might have a box of chocolates, a whole set of these in a row, in Kazakhstan the packaging is a little bit different. They're almost always individually wrapped. And I think that's a bit better for moderation. When you have a whole box, you can be seriously tempted to eat the whole thing. But in Kazakhstan, you tend to go over to people's homes, and they have these little crystal bowls filled with individually wrapped chocolates, and you can just have a little nibble whenever you get a craving. Almaty is home to a major film studio called Kazakh Film, whose movies were watched by millions across the USSR, and there's even a whole neighborhood nearby that is named Kazakh Film in its honor. Yet, very few people have actually set foot on its grounds. That's because security at film studios is notoriously tight. After all, you don't want people just wandering in on set or stalking movie stars. But luckily for us, I have a friend, Gul Ajar, who has been working here at Kazakh Film for a while, and she has agreed to get us behind the gates. Every Soviet republic had its own film studio, so there was also an Uzbek film, an Armenia film, and so on. But Kazakhstan was special because Almaty was once, for a short time, the Hollywood of the Soviet Union. During World War II, the USSR's major film studios, Lenfilm and Mosfilm, were evacuated far from the dangers of the front to this peaceful town beneath the Tian Shan Mountains. Brilliant directors of the period, like Sergei Eisenstein, shot some of their most famous movies in Kazakhstan, and they inspired a whole cadre of talented Kazakh filmmakers. One such artist was a young man named Shakhen Aymanov, and the Kazakh Film Studio is named in his honor. Hi, Gulajar.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you for coming here.
Well, I think it's so appropriate that you asked me to meet you here next to the statue of Aymanov, because the entire studio is named after this famous filmmaker, right?
Yeah, and Shakhen Aymanov was a legendary Kazakh filmmaker, and he contributed really greatly into the history of Kazakh cinema. He was the first head of Kazakh film studio, and he made a lot of great movies that actually became kind of a golden film fund of Kazakhstan.
They're still famous to this day. I mean, I know people still watch Aymanov films on TV almost every day of the week. He's really a legend.
His movies, and actually, he has his star on this Walk of Fame.
I feel like I'm back home in Hollywood. So there's a whole Walk of Fame here that's dedicated to Kazakh artists and directors, right?
Yeah, and we can walk it and see it. So we have Sergei Eisenstein and other legendary Russian filmmakers. They were all evacuated here to Kazakhstan during the war.
Right.
And we have Shakhen Aymanov here.
There he is.
And other legendary Kazakh actors and directors.
Very cool.
Yeah, they're all here. You know, this building actually has 2 sound stages where they shoot movies.
So inside of here is where they've shot some of the most famous Kazakh films of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, I hate to say I've never been inside, but I've actually been here to the studio before to shoot the building from the outside, because the graffito mosaics that you see up there are some of my favorite.
Oh, really?
Now, all my viewers know that I'm crazy about these Soviet mosaics, and these ones up here were actually done by a really, really famous Kazakh artist named Yevgeny Sidorkin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he's really famous for making these illustrations for books, but he was able to do these artworks showing famous scenes from Kazakh films that were probably shot in a soundstage just like this in Almaty. I asked Gulajar to take me to the costumes and prop section, which is legendary in Kazakhstan for its collection of traditional Kazakh clothes. The warehouse was like if an ancient nomad had a huge walk-in closet, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen.
So these are the costumes that are usually used in Kazakh films, historical projects.
I can immediately feel actually that the costumes are historical because there's this smell of history in here.
Yeah, it's really the smell of history, so you can literally touch the history here.
And this is not like any costume department, I think, that you can find back home in Hollywood. Yeah. Because here, we don't have the contemporary clothes, but everything from these historical epics that are so popular in Kazakhstan, right? And whenever I watch these Kazakh movies, you see there are hundreds of people wearing these just beautiful, beautiful traditional costumes, and you wonder, where do they all come from? And here's the answer.
Yeah, this is it.
So each one of these was fit for a specific extra, for a specific actor.
Yes.
They had to take the measurements and everything.
Yes. So lately these historical costumes were used for a big historical TV drama.
Okay.
So they're just fresh from the shooting.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, it's great that these kind of shows and movies are still popular in Kazakhstan because people can see exactly what Kazakhs used to wear, what that traditional life used to be like, and learn a little bit about their history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these are the helmets that are also used for cinematic warriors.
Wow. You know, this reminds me of like back in the United States, we have these military surplus stores where you can go and you can buy like camouflage jackets and helmets, but you would never find something like this
can
back home.
Put it on?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I'm wearing this right. I've never worn a Kazakh helmet before.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's got this little horsehair tassel,
Yeah.
you know, at the top. And this is exactly what Kazakh warriors would have been wearing 500 years ago. And here they have dozens of these for use in these really cool epic films.
Yeah. I would like to show you more about the process of making these costumes. Remember I told you that the costume designers make them according to the ancient drawings?
Yeah.
So this is it. They make these sketches, and the seamstresses, they do the sewing and the embroidery. So they actually look 100% authentic.
You know, you weren't kidding. Like here you can see actually some old, you know, watercolor painting of an ancient Khan.
Yeah.
And they've totally recreated that.
Yeah.
And in each case you can see that they have these kind of sources of inspiration that they're using here. I think this would be like the perfect job for somebody who loves history, who loves fashion, to be able to put all of that together and make history come alive.
Yeah, exactly.
What a beautiful, beautiful work. Next, Gulajar suggested we check out the post-production facilities at the studio, where Kazakh Film's engineers take footage and transform it into world-class cinema. Having grown up near Hollywood, I'd heard a lot about the processes we'd be seeing, but it was a total privilege to be able to see it for myself.
So this is Foley. Foley is a set of techniques that are used for producing different sounds for the movie's soundtrack. So when they first make the movie, and then they need to redub the sound, and so, for example, here you can try to produce some sound.
I've heard about this thing. So it's like if in the movie, if they show some guy who's walking on dirt, then here the Foley artist will come and
Yeah, exactly, and produce this sound steps.
They're coming for us, Gulajar! Quick! Quick! Oh no! They're throwing rocks at us! Quick! Watch out! Man, you can have a lot of fun in here.
Yeah. So here we see lots of more devices for producing different types of sounds for the movie. For example, this one goes for snow.
It sounds just like someone crunching on the snow. But what is it actually?
It's
Krakhmal. This is starch.
Yeah.
This is something you use for cooking, but you could actually use it to make the sound of snow.
They use it for the steps.
That's hilarious. You know, if I were to look at this shelf, I would never guess what this is, right? It looks like the shelf in like my grandpa's garage or something. It's covered in all this random junk. This is not a very high-tech thing, but in a way, it requires a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
so, yeah, just
I don't know, let's find something. Here is like a little sparkly case. Who knows what that can be?
Yeah, anything. This is
key turning in a door. This is what?
Yeah.
It could be like someone punching somebody else, right?
Someone beating.
Each one of these things can be something entirely different.
Yeah,
and you can make a whole world from all these random little objects.
Yeah, and you could never guess by just seeing this. So these are the doors, different, several of them, and they all produce different sounds.
So you use this to like make the creaking noise or like the closing noise of a door.
Yes.
But then you open it up and there's another door.
Yeah. This one produces a different sound, because it has glass inside.
Crazy. Yeah. And then another one. This is like some kind of bad nightmare.
Yeah.
Someone who gets stuck in Kazakh film and won't get out and like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of here? Cool. Almaty is a city that is so green and so walkable that as a tourist, it seems as if you can pretty much cover everything just by strolling the streets. But on today's program, I think we've seen that what you can see from the sidewalk is just the beginning. Inside Almaty's buildings, Kazakhstanis are making movies and broadcasting them to the world. They're making chocolate and making laws. For me, it's been a revelation to see just what is inside these hidden spaces, and I hope that for you, it's been a discovery as well. Until next time, thank you for joining us. I'm Dennis Keene, Salbol, Baka, and goodbye.